2015. I'm your host, Tracie Harris, and with me today is my co-host, Don Baker.
Hey, good to be here.
Hey. And we are a live call-in television show dedicated to positive atheism and the separation of church and state. We're available on live streaming video at Ustream TV, and our Atheist Experience website is www.atheist-experience.com. You can provide feedback by commenting on the official show blog at freethoughtblogs.com/AXP, or you can email us at atheistcommunity.org. If you enjoy the show, check out our other show, The Nonprofits, every first and third Wednesday of every month. You can find links at the ACA website. Also, their website is www.nonprofitsradio.com. That's profits with a PH. And after the program, a lot of us will be going to El Arroyo's for dinner at 1624 West 5th Street. That's after the show, about 6 p.m., if anyone is interested. And we have a couple of announcements today. One is that we have a sad announcement. Ann Nicole Gaylor, founder of the Freedom from Religion Foundation, we got word that she has passed away. That was on June 14th, and so we wanted to just send out our condolences to family and friends of hers and just express appreciation for the great organization that she started and the work that she initiated and fulfilled. So we're going to miss that presence in the community, I'm sure. I was also told that we are close to the summer solstice, or it is the summer solstice.
That's right, today is.
I do not keep track of these types of things, but someone mentioned it, so we're mentioning it. There's probably solstice parties for some of the groups that go on, so whatever you have happening, enjoy your solstice. It also happens to be Father's Day today here in the U.S. side, and I guess I also need to mention that on June 28th, we have a special event. Chris Johnson is going to be in Austin, and we get to see the Austin premiere of his new film, the version of his book,
A Better Life.
A Better Life, thank you, and I should know this.
An exploration of joy and meaning in a world without God.
Thank you, and I'm embarrassed because we have Chris in the audience today as I lock
Welcome,
up.
Chris. I'm glad you're here.
Okay, and that's going to be at the Trinity United Methodist Church from 1 to 3 in the afternoon. If anyone's interested, we do have a little article that was posted this month at the blog, so feel free to go and check that out.
It's also on our website.
Yes.
So that's great.
Yeah, and we really encourage people to come on down and see that. It's been premiering all over the place. We're very lucky to have Chris in town to present that, and really and just encourage everyone to come out.
And we have more than a handful of ACA members involved in that film, right?
There are people, and
You might be one of those, huh?
I'm one of them, and
gosh,
yeah,
a celebrity.
So no, no. So anyway, yeah, come on down and check those things out. And I hope I covered everything. I think it should be all right. I should be allowed to say that I don't normally host the show. I got an emergency call tonight that we needed someone to come fill in. So I apologize for stumbling all through the announcements and hope it wasn't too painful for everybody.
You're doing awesome.
Okay, and so, Don, do you have a topic?
I do
today?
have a topic.
Okay.
I'd like to bring topics, and I've been doing a long series on the failures of Christianity, and this one kind of counts as that, I think.
Okay.
It's yet another failure. I've done about 30 of them. Today, as far as I count, it's 31, and today I'm going to talk about emotional manipulation. And I've claimed that the 3 pillars of Christian apologetics are lies and deception, 1, logical fallacies, 2, and emotional manipulation, 3. I have never talked about emotional manipulation as a topic on its own, and I think it's worth doing that. And if you're paying attention, those 3 pillars are pretty nasty things. They shouldn't convince anybody of anything. Yet I claim that these are what every apologetic that I've ever heard is some combination of those 3 things. So when Christians use these tactics, they unwittingly tell the world that their religion needs those tactics to advance itself. And it's a kind of admission that there's nothing of intrinsic value in the religion, otherwise you'd present that instead of the logical fallacies and emotional manipulation. So I think that emotional manipulation is a purview of con artists, yet Christianity uses these sorts of things all the time, and so one could reasonably conclude that Christianity is therefore a con. So today, let's see. So cons use emotional manipulation like this. A normal con goes, there's some sort of appeal to greed, where you're going to make a lot of money, some big reward is going to come your way, and the dupe is usually convinced that they're special, they're in on some sort of special deal, or they're special in some way, and they're getting this deal where other people aren't, and aren't you wonderful? They may be encouraged not to talk about their dealings or to ask questions about it because it's all secret and hush-hush. And they will be asked to contribute or sacrifice for the eventual payout. And of course, from the con's perspective, that's the contribution or sacrifice is what the con is looking for. That's the con's payout. So Christianity uses slightly different emotions. They're not necessarily an appeal to greed, but there is an appeal to reward. There is schadenfreude, which I'll explain in a minute, hate, fear and loathing, piety, and glurge. And I want to hit each of those very briefly. Reward. So Christians, they get not only a reward of an eternal afterlife, which is a big reward, but also they get an infinite reward of not being tortured forever in an afterlife.
That's a big
right?
reward.
It's a double one, right? But wait, there's more. You can spend eternity with your buddy Jesus. And so it's just,
definitely act now.
And act now, right?
Yeah.
That's right.
Don't want to wait.
Don't want to wait. So it does have that sort of feel. So this is this incredible reward here, and the con is kind of subtle. Ministers are selling something intangible. You're going to get something after you die, and unverifiable. So it's also without evidence, and it's hard to know when you've been duped. You just have to have faith, and that's part of the con, right? And the pay-in is in a lifetime of tithes and following God, as interpreted by the minister, and being generally subservient to some God that doesn't necessarily even exist. So there is kind of a reward here. There is kind of a greed angle almost, but it's a different type of greed. There's also Schadenfreude, which is a German word for taking pleasure in somebody else's misfortune, and this is kind of one of our base human emotions, I think. And this seems to be the core appeal of end times theology, which is really a multi-million-dollar industry. The idea is that you get to watch the torments of the non-believers and other people you've been taught to hate, because you're going to be swept up to heaven and enjoy this, enjoy the show, and other people are going to be, tortured and such. And in Matthew 13:41 through 43, I'm going to read, "The Son of Man shall send forth his angels, and they shall gather out of his kingdom all things that offend, and to them which do iniquity, and shall cast them into a furnace of fire, and there shall be wailing and gnashing of teeth. And then shall the righteous shine forth in the sun in the kingdom of their Father. Who hath ears to hear, let them hear." So if that isn't Schadenfreude, I don't know what is. So, and this also seems to be part of the appeal of the culture wars. If you get to make laws that screw over gays, or make women bear children that they can't afford, or if you can screw over atheists as part of the deal, then that's all good too. Hate. Christian churches are they make lots of money from hate. Let's just be clear about it. They tell you who to hate. And they in their fundraising letters and these sorts of things, they say, oh, these people are on the march. We gotta having an enemy makes you powerful and makes you rich. And so this idea of love the sinner, hate the sinner is BS. It's all hate. And I think that most of the terror that Christian leaders feel about same-sex marriage is simply that they're going to lose money on the gimmick, on their money-making gimmick. They're going to lose out. When gays are normal and they're getting married and mowing their lawns or whatever, it's like, how can you make money off of that, right?
Well, I think the way they'll make money is that 50 years from now, the churches will be performing the gay weddings, and they'll be saying that they were orchestrating the movement toward gay rights.
Right, they'll claim credit.
Yeah.
Okay, so meanwhile, some of the other ministers might have to get
They
some
stood
honest
against
work.
those anti-gay secular values that were oppressing homosexuals.
Right.
Yeah. That's going to be what the
ticket.
history is going to say, 50 years from now. Just
Okay.
check back and I won't be alive, but
It's like
you can
what
see
they
if
did
I'm
with
right
the
or
slavery.
not.
Oh, yeah, we were really the vanguard of the slavery.
And certainly there were people who were religious that were anti-slavery,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
To say that they weren't also orchestrating, maintaining slavery in a really powerful way
Absolutely.
is to sort of eviscerate history.
Okay. I've got a couple more. Fear
Go
and
for it.
loathing. Christians believe they are miserable wretches, completely unworthy of redemption, but their God deigns to love them only conditionally. At any moment, their God could turn on them, so they'd better keep in line.
Yeah.
Kind of a, and this is an inherently unhealthy codependent sort of relationship. This is very creepy stuff.
And you have to have faith. You have to have faith that you're in the right religion, that you're doing it, that you crossed all your T's and dotted your I's, and that you didn't, have some misstep that you forgot to ask forgiveness for because, it's all it takes.
You're never completely sure.
One little blemish and you can't stand before your God
That's
because
right.
he
That's
can do
right.
anything except for tolerate imperfections in things that he created imperfect.
Right, exactly. And Christians try to spread this fear to others through threats of damnation. And I get that all the time. Is whenever I argue theists into the corner, they usually come out with threats.
Oh, now wait a minute. You don't get this till they're in the corner because I get it off the bat.
Do you?
What if you're wrong?
What if I'm wrong?
You're an
right.
atheist. What if you're wrong?
What if I'm
I get
wrong?
the threat like Pascal comes out of the box like almost
immediately.
Yeah, he's the front horse.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
But I get the more overt threats later on. That's
That's
a pretty
'cause
subtle.
it's
That's
'cause
a pretty
you're gay.
subtle. Yeah. I guess. Right. So I consider this a classic case of breaking your leg to sell you a crutch, right?
Okay.
Where they
Yeah.
want you to be kind of sucked into this terrible relationship so that they can sell you their religion.
Yeah, I think as only atheists, you only get like half the threats. There's like half the vitriol. You don't get as much. It's like as you pile things on.
Oh, you think I'm special?
Yeah, you need to like flaunt eating shrimp or something like that, and yeah.
Yeah. Sadly, a lot of the Christians don't even know about the shrimp
I'm surprised with all these atheists in here, the studio doesn't just like flood or something. I don't know how we do this every week without some sort of
and,
Where's the brimstone and the?
Right.
I guess
I don't
it's
smell any
coming, right?
sulfur.
We're gonna get it, and then they can laugh.
That's right.
They can exercise the Schadenfreude and be excited that we're all suffering, and you told us so, and we should have lived our lives cowering in fear, and we didn't, and that's what we get for acting like human beings and not being ashamed of our humanity.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay, I got two more. Piety. So piety could be described as a false sense of nobility for unthinkingly seeking the hedonistic rewards of eternal bliss.
This has nothing to do with pie.
No, nothing to do with pie.
That's a shame.
And so I don't think that seeking the eternal rewards is noble, although they're billing it as noble. And martyrs, I think, are just following through with their hedonistic beliefs, and maybe they're paying the price because of it. And I think that saints are shills or dupes, and not to be exalted. The people that are toeing the line. So, and sacrifices such as Lent and saying the Rosary are just, I think, self-manipulation emotionally. They're just to help you feel better about yourself. And perhaps the purpose of these things in the con is to distract people from actually thinking and actually, getting out of the mindset. Glurge is another one. This is an internet term. That's
I was going to say this is a new word for me.
Word,
I wrote it down. Glurge.
And so when you get these kitten photos and rainbows and all this sickly sweet stuff that gets forwarded, that's glurge, right? It feels good,
pew. Who hasn't seen it?
It has lots of calories, but no substance, right? It's just.
Have you seen that kitty though?
Oh no! Come on.
It's got his little paws. Oh my god.
Okay. I'll admit it. I watched goats jumping on trampolines this week, and it was too fun.
Did you see the sheep with the face mask on?
No. Okay. All right. Stop.
Okay. Getting sidetracked.
So, in Christianity, think of Hummel figures of praying children, and that's glurge for sure.
Oh gosh,
or claims about God's grace and how wonderful God is, or the personality cult surrounding Jesus, or anything having to do with spirituality.
Do people use the term glurgelicious? Like glurgelicious?
We can coin it right here. You heard it here.
If somebody hasn't already done it, I think the word lends itself to that. Like, oh my gosh, that meme is so glurgelicious. So. Just saying.
Okay. All right, I want to wrap up here. Emotional manipulation is the stuff of cons, and keep your emotions in check and use your brain instead. And the use of emotional manipulation in apologetics is just par for the course, and the fact that emotional manipulation is commonly used means that Christianity needs it in order to advance itself.
Yeah.
And that's another failure of Christianity.
Yeah, always beware somebody that tells you trust not. Don't lean on your own understanding. Don't reason. I mean,
Right.
that is some scary stuff when a person is telling you that what I want to sell you is best if you don't think about it too much.
Yeah, it's like red alert,
Keep
red
that
alert, red
in
alert.
mind, because this is what that translates to. I just took a little bit of notes while I was listening,
Great.
because I have not seen your presentation. So I just wanted to say that, I've talked about them utilizing pressure like used car deals because if you simply said, well, there is this God that created everything, and the God wants you to believe in it, then a person could just be like, well, I can't really tell if there's a God or not, and so I guess I'll just wait, and if I die and then there's a God, I'll find out. So you have to have something in there that says, no, you have to act now. And that's when you say, oh, no, see, after you're dead, it will be too late, because there's the punishment that gets piled on. And so you need to make this decision right now. And that's what they do at like the car lots, when they'll say, oh, you have this deal on the car, and you're like, yeah, I need to go and see what my bank says about how much they'll loan me for the, and they're like, no, you don't need, there's somebody else looking at it. They were here this afternoon, and you say, you need to make this decision right away. Don't wait. And this is what they do. They have it's like this little pressure gimmick that they put on, because they say like, oh, this is such a big question. But really, if they weren't threatening you with hell, it wouldn't be an interesting or big question at all. Who would care? Because you wouldn't have to make a decision about it. You could just say, well, it's just one of those things we can't know.
I hear this sort of tactic with the end times too. It's like, the world might end and you're going to be on the wrong side of the
Yeah, well, that's the whole point. It's like the pressure. It's like if that wasn't there, nobody would have any reason to care about this whatsoever. Really. I mean, you would just say, it's indeterminate, and so set it aside. If evidence ever comes up that's compelling, I'll listen to this. But in order to keep you from having that nonchalant attitude about a question that wouldn't impact you at all in your life on any level, they have to tell you that you're being saved by it.
Yep.
So it's interesting. And then with the Schadenfreude, I actually noticed too, this is something that I talk about and recently even came up with on a secular level for something else, but I'm not going to get into that. But I do think that there's something about people who live in a conservative, fearful mindset, that they sort of resent the fact that you run around free and happy and you're not scared, right? This happens in other areas that aren't theological, where I will see people who are just like, well, it's almost, you see it a lot with victim blaming, where it's almost like I told you to be more careful and you weren't careful, and that's why this happened to you, and completely ignore all the people that are, taking strolls in the evening that don't end up getting mugged or killed. It's like all those people. And so they look at these selective data points where something went wrong, where somebody was behaving in a very free way and something went wrong, and they justify the fearful mindset of all these precautions that they take by simply saying that if I don't take them, this will happen to me. And it's like, there's always going to be something that can happen to you, and ultimately you could just lock yourself in a tower and be Rapunzel all your life. And this could be your life if that's what you want.
Then you're going to get head lice.
Well, it sounds kind of cliche, but in Finding Nemo, nothing will ever happen to you. You can lock yourself in a box and nothing will ever happen to you. And you're right, nothing will ever happen. That will be your life.
Nothing good, nothing bad.
Yeah,
right?
And so at some point you have to step out and say, I'm not going to have fear curtail my life. Fear is not going to dictate to me how I behave and what I do.
Absolutely.
Now that's a different thing than, exercising general prudence or being aware of things. But the idea that you actually are afraid, there are people who I think walk around almost like in a state of fear all the time.
Oh, it permeates our culture,
And the other, where I see this,
things like the drug war and
Yes.
wars on terror and all this stuff. It's all be afraid, be afraid, be afraid.
The other thing, though, is with sexuality we see this. When you see somebody that's acting like a human being, that is like socially sexual, right? People freak out.
Yeah.
And you especially get people who are, the Schadenfreude comes out with the anti-choice. because they love to throw down like unplanned pregnancy as a punishment.
Oh yeah.
And
absolutely.
STDs are a punishment and all of this. And it's just this idea that it's like, well, you can be responsible. And they'll throw out the 98% success rate of a birth control pill to look at the 2% fail and say it's not 100%, like abstinence,
It's
like
terrible,
our model,
right?
our sexual model is the only way to be 100%. And it's like, you know what? I don't walk around in my life worrying that I am 100% safe from every single thing. And if I did walk around like that, I would be, like I said, locked behind 5 feet of brick and just with bomb shelter 1,000 feet underground. I mean, I don't really need a risk event to be only 2% available to me to feel safe. If you can't feel safe with 98% effectiveness, then then you're a scared person.
Yeah, and we have very bad estimates of how likely something is to harm us, right? We spend trillions of dollars on the war on terror, but heart disease is killing far more people, right?
But I think it really makes them feel good to see somebody that's in the fail category, that's in, that has something to do with something that failed. Like you were using condoms, but they got an STD, or they were using birth control, but they got pregnant, and they love to look at this. And I think to them it justifies their fear by looking at these very minuscule selected data points that are these weird bias confirmations that they have. And I think it's interesting that they're so used to and comfortable with living in that fear state, and they cannot stand when they see people that are actually behaving in a way where they're not afraid, where they are out having a healthy sex life. They completely flip out. This person is going to suffer. They need to suffer. They're taking birth control. They're avoiding the consequences. And it's like, no, they're being responsible. That is completely different. And it's just kind of, I'm so sad, I think, at how many people live their lives with this element of fear. I remember somebody one time telling me that fear is like an emergency light in your car, that it comes on, and once you recognize it, there's no need to keep it on. You know there's something wrong, you go, you check the car. It doesn't make you check the car any better to check it while you're afraid. So you don't have to stay afraid. You can recognize that there's the problem, that fear is alerting you to a potential problem, and then you can turn it off and go and figure out what's going on. But there is no situation where you're going to handle it better afraid than level-headed.
Yeah.
In fact, you handle things worse when you're afraid because
Absolutely.
it impedes your ability to think clearly. So banish fear from your life. Do not live your life afraid. It's like a cage that you put yourself into, and it pains me to see this.
Yes, yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
I'm sorry. That's my rant.
What do you say we take some calls?
All right, so I apparently
we can do line one.
All right, so let me pull up my call list here, and we will go ahead and take line one. Hello, is this Tristan in Waco?
Yes.
Hello,
Hi.
Tristan in Waco.
I'm doing good. How are you?
Good. What's up?
I've got a question for you guys. I've been on and off Christian throughout my whole life, and I've gotten some really big questions answered on each side, really. And so, one question for you guys when it comes to the lack of belief, I'm wondering. And I've listened to you guys talk about the problem with the appeal to authority and God saying, I say so, therefore it's true. And I'm wondering if that assumption isn't a little bit far-fetched when it's applied to our own worth and, human rights and why do we matter. It essentially boils down to because we say so.
Well, no, it doesn't just boil down to because you say so. It's, a lot of years of evolution went into you having a value of your own life. I assume you value your life because you're not dead, right?
Or are you talking more about the value of humanity?
I wouldn't know.
Well, we have to start here. So,
okay.
Tristan, you haven't, to be blunt, you haven't killed yourself. So there appears to be some value that you place on your own life.
Oh yeah, I mean, I work on a psych ward, and there's the other side of it where we keep them. I mean, we have to watch them to keep them from killing themselves.
Okay, but you value your own life.
Yeah, but
Okay.
that's essentially because I say so. And
Is it because you say so, or I mean, you have you value it, correct? Do you have to have? Do you have to have a reasonable basis to value a thing? Can you value something? Can you value something because it makes you happy?
Well, I mean, when it comes to value, I mean, that already assumes that I'm right about it.
No, it doesn't. Value is self-applied. You are right about what you value because you determine what you value.
Well, I could value, killing myself, but that would...
Could you? Could you? Like if I asked you to value that and go ahead and act out on that in the next 5 minutes, could you do it?
I mean, not me, but if
Okay, so let's stick with you, all right? You value your own life, correct?
Oh, well, yeah, I do.
Okay, and you value it because it's meaningful to you, correct?
Right.
Okay. And your life depends on other people as well, correct?
Definitely.
And you would like to continue living, would you not?
I mean, undoubtedly, yes.
Okay.
I think what you might be fishing for is some sort of, there's some intrinsic value here that is objectively...
Right, but what I'm getting at is value doesn't have to be intrinsic.
Right,
value
right.
is what you determine to be valuable. And you're right, there are people who do not, I don't want to say they don't value their lives, but they may have a situation where they feel that their life is not worth living at this point, or maybe even in the future, and there are some people who will take their own life. So I agree that there are people who do not find sufficient value in life to keep living. That is a demonstrable fact.
I mean, that's what I was facing last night. You have to keep this guy from killing himself. It's pretty severe when it comes to the things that we value, and
did you care about
what he wanted.
Did you care about this guy that you were trying to save?
I didn't particularly care about him personally, but I mean, when it comes to the value of life, I can see it, even though he might not be able to.
Okay, so you place a value. You placed a value on his life that was sort of an abstract value on life generally.
Right.
Okay, that's fine. Do you know why you prefer life over death? Do you understand why?
That's how I'm programmed.
Well, what do you mean when you say that's how you're programmed?
That's how my body operates at this moment.
Yeah, you have a desire to keep living. Have you? If you went and tried to strangle a tiger, do you think it would defend its life?
Depends on its condition.
Okay. In general, let's say that there's not any kind of weird extenuating circumstance.
I mean, I work on the psych ward, so you can really get anything.
Okay. But the point is that yes, we have billion years of breeding that has instilled in us a desire to survive as a general rule. And I will give you there are exceptions. But what's going on here is that we are driven to not wish to die, right? We place a value on being alive, and if we didn't, we would have never evolved to the point that we are at, right? I mean,
I get that part. I'm actually
well, let me.
I mean, I support science fully. I understand it very well.
Then this is where the value comes from.
Yeah, I want to expand on Tracie's point a little bit. Not only are we programmed to survive, I mean, we're a social species, and we need other people to survive, and we have built, we have this wonderful culture and these wonderful civilization and all these things we built and all the comforts. The fact that I can, pull some paper out of my wallet and go buy a hamburger, I think is totally awesome. It's
me too.
and so other people are valuable. We are better as a team, right? It's just that simple.
Oh, yeah,
and so other people matter because of that.
But I was saying they matter because essentially it boils down to what we want, and
yes, we want to live. Those are what values are, the things we want.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with
so when God says he wants us to matter, Why is that?
There's no
then,
capital V values.
But why is that then a stretch?
I don't understand what you mean by why is it a stretch that God says he wants us to have value? What do you mean?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see God is essentially
The ultimate authority, the ultimate thing that cares.
I guess what I'm saying is I don't see a need for God to provide me with value. We just explained why people have inherent value.
Yeah.
So why do we need God in that mix?
Well, it's actually it's not too intricate of a progression, but I figured if you'd like to hear it, it's fairly short. It essentially boils down from science assumes that the universe is intelligible, and Christianity assumes God created the universe, and God can be known through that. And, I mean, Kepler, Galileo, Newton pursued knowledge of God and how he created the universe and made discoveries that propelled science more than any secular attempts at the time. And
I'm not so sure about that, but yeah, I take your point. Go ahead.
I still don't see I'm still kind of waiting to see why God is necessary to explain human value.
well, the vast majority of people define what is normal. I mean, if the vast majority think one way, then that's the normal thing to think.
It's average. Let's call it some sort of a average or median or mean or something. I'm not sure.
Right.
I mean, normal
Yeah,
would include
fringe.
there are fringe things that are normal too, that are normal in a population. So when you use the word normal, you have to be a little bit careful. There is a norm.
I mean,
Very overloaded
was
word.
normal a while back. So yeah, I mean, but the vast majority have always believed in some sort of deity, and not doing so is the outlier. And so, believing in an illusion is wrong and delusional, but it's considered normal when it comes to that.
What does that have to do with human value?
Well, because that is essentially what I was getting to, is that it's an illusion according to science, contending that reality, as we perceive it, is illusory.
Wait a minute. I want to hear that one again because I am not sure I followed that.
Okay. Science contends that reality is an illusion when it comes to our perception. It's all subjective.
What do you mean science is saying that reality is an illusion? Like, I've never heard science
Are you
say
saying
that.
our senses are fallible, or are you saying that we're living in a vat, and we're
I don't know
watching
what you're
projections?
saying. I'm not sure I'm understanding. What do you mean when you
Plato's
say that
cave,
science is saying that reality is illusory?
That our plane of understanding is the mid-ground. There's super small, super large, and we can't understand those kinds of planes, I suppose.
But we have objective means of observing those things, even though we can't directly perceive and observe. I mean, that part of what science is about is getting objective means of looking at things so that we can take our subjective observations out of it.
Sure, but when it comes to what I was talking about, when it comes to us mattering, that part is not objective. That part is the illusion part. That's our opinion.
I don't think it's
wait
a minute. We just explained that this is an evolved attribute.
Right.
It doesn't even
And
make
that
sense that a thing would evolve and that overall that particular species wouldn't want to live. How would it even have made it this far? So
No, it wouldn't.
this is a scientific reality, in my opinion.
Right, and that part is, that is based in hard facts. I get that, but when it comes to our actual understanding of the universe is just completely, useless on its own. We have to build that up.
I don't understand what you mean that our understanding of the universe is useless. Doesn't it keep us alive?
I don't really see the point of that objectively, other than just
I don't know what you
a
mean.
manifestation.
Objectively, right, you have evolved as a species that values your own life as a member of that species. That is an objective fact.
Whenever this topic comes up, I like to bring up the fact that all of our technology is due to the fruits of science. Science
Yeah.
and reasoning created our technology, and
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
can you live a day without technology, without a roof over your head, without a car, without milk in your fridge, and with all these things we're so used to? Well, that came from science, and yeah, it's a relatively young thing. It's 400 years old as a process, and we have a long way to go, and we may not learn and understand everything, but golly, it's been awfully fruitful so far.
Yeah, God helps those who help themselves sort of truism sort of thing. Doesn't really appeal to me that much. But when it comes to, trying to propose God as a God of the gap doesn't really appeal to me.
I guess here's the thing, right? If we had a pack of wolves, a wolf would value its own life, correct?
Definitely.
And the wolf would value the lives of other members of its pack, correct?
Yeah, so which
Okay, now
one is
wait, does that
objectively
wolf
more
understand
valuable?
the concept of God?
You what?
Does the wolf understand the concept of God?
Well, it may be a manifestation of God's intention.
No,
when it
does
comes-
that wolf have the concept of God? As far as you're aware, do wolves understand God?
I don't know.
They don't appear to, right?
Well,
I mean,
not-
there's
not
very
on our level.
He answered your point.
well. I guess what I'm saying is, if a wolf values its life and the wolf values the lives of other members of its society,
Yeah.
and it understands this value, right, because of objective realities that have shaped the wolf,
A manifestation of DNA. Yeah.
why would people be any different? Why would you expect people to be different than that?
That was coming back to my original point, is what makes us so valuable. Other
The
than
same
just
thing
that
that
we
makes
say
the
so.
wolf valuable to the wolf, and the same thing that makes his pack valuable to him or
Yeah.
her. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
understand.
So
the,
it's not
that's
it's
just-
not a.
I don't even see how this is
Opinion.
hard.
That's just subjective opinion
It's
on the
not
wolf's
it's
part.
not valuable in the grand scheme of things, but it's valuable to
Is it
us.
subjective, though, of the wolf? Does the wolf have a choice in this?
Well, just as much as we do, which is none. So,
So is it really a subjective choice for you to value your life?
well, in that case, what makes the belief in God any less objective? That's not really a choice.
Because I'm not saying I've never said belief is a simple choice. Okay, I'll
Well,
give you that. But
I
I do
understand.
think that evidence should shape beliefs, and you can use evidence to even shape the beliefs of animals, right? You can
Yeah,
train an
it's done
animal.
that for me. Definitely, it's done that for me.
Right.
But when it comes to the meaning behind,
Okay.
I get all this, but when it comes to the grander scheme of what makes, I guess, why is that not delusional thinking?
Because you mean, why is what not delusional thinking? Belief in God or value of your own life?
Value of your life. How is that not inherently
Because
delusional?
there is an actual inherent innate purpose. I hate to use the word purpose, but there is like an objective explanation for it.
Well,
I don't know
the
how to-
programming is that way.
Excuse
But-
me? You are
You what?
instilled with this as part of your evolution. I don't know why that would be subjective.
Wait.
You're not the only animal that is instilled with this. Tons of them are. In fact, all
Yeah,
of the successful
all of
ones
them.
are. So I don't understand why you would consider this to be a subjective decision to value your life when you're sitting here saying you couldn't just arbitrarily kill yourself. And you're also admitting that all these species value their existence enough to fight for it or to at least defend it in some way. And yet you're calling this subjective, and I find that very weird.
Well, so you can choose to kill yourself.
Yes,
You-
people do that. I understand. In some societies, they don't understand suicide. They don't have that concept. In our society,
Yeah.
we do, and people take that route sometimes. But that is an outlier. What we're talking about here is that the species in general has this value for life. All species in general appear to have this value for life. And I don't really understand why we would look at that and say, now that we have an explanation for where this value is derived, and it is innate. So how is that
Yeah.
any more subjective than saying that than any aesthetic that you were instilled with from an evolutionary standpoint would be subjective.
Oh, such as God?
No, that's not an aesthetic. I mean, that is something that when you have a belief, right, a belief as opposed to a value, a belief about reality is dependent on evidence, usually, what you have learned about reality. I have not learned about God.
Well,
but it's innate to value life.
There's this word God, and I talked about this last time. There's equivocation here. I mean, which God are we talking about? There's mankind's have invented tens of thousands of gods, and they're all different, and every person has, every Christian I've ever talked to has a different idea of God.
To me, though, the idea of comparing that to the value that a person puts on their life is not even comparable unless you can demonstrate that all other species also have this belief in God.
Yeah, but there's this tacit assumption that belief in God is a thing, and no, it's belief in billions of different gods.
Yeah, it is a loaded term. I think that what I meant is the supernatural seems to be something that all of us innately understand at a young age. And
wait a minute.
We tend to assume that there are causes for things and agency. And it's a well-known failure of our reasoning.
Right. Children outgrow this generally. We quit saying, at a certain point, you stop saying that the door bit you when you shut your hand in it because you understand the door does not have agency. The fact that we go through this phase as children, believing that things do things on purpose to us, right, is something that you outgrow.
It's a simplistic way of understanding the world.
If you hang on to it.
That is exactly reflected in the Bible when it comes to it having true facts, as do all other religions, and those always have a growth to them. And to me, when it comes to science guiding, I'm wondering if science is guiding us to an ultimately perfect understanding with a perfectly human religion.
I don't see that, but I mean, you're welcome to blog about it because we actually have other callers that I have to get to.
Oh, yeah.
I do appreciate your call. I hope we gave you sufficient time that you feel like you're able to express a lot of what you wanted to.
About half of it, but yeah, that's cool.
But I do have to move on. We do have other callers that have been waiting patiently because I'm a naughty host. So,
thanks. You guys are wonderful.
Okay. Bye-bye. Okay,
Bye.
So hit one and hit drop.
Okay, I'm hitting one and I'm hitting drop.
That should drop.
Okay, and then this one we're going to next, right?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Tom in Slovakia.
It is. Hi guys, hello Tristan.
Hello, welcome.
Thank you for holding.
Yep, I tried to.
Okay.
So, I was wondering, well, first of all, I love your show and I've been watching it for quite some time now. And one thing that your show taught me is critical thinking and, questioning all sorts of opinions and statements.
Good, and don't even trust us.
And so I changed a lot of my values. Despite being an atheist, I changed a whole bunch of other values of mine thanks to critically examining them. And I was wondering, what is your take? I obviously know what your take on theists. You question all the beliefs the same way I do. But I was wondering, what's your take on anti-theists and their beliefs? If someone goes, I believe that there is no God, if you question that belief the same way you question theists.
I think the term we would use is strong atheism or positive atheism, where we would say there is no God. Yes, that's an assertion that you would make, and it's a positive claim, and you'd have to back it up with evidence. In my experience, what I do with theists is I'm constantly asking for evidence. Please provide me evidence of your God and help me understand where you're coming from. Why should I believe this? And over time, the absence of evidence starts to mount up, and you begin to say, well, maybe there's nothing to this. And maybe you go look at a bunch of God claims and see if they make sense. And you look at the history of our cultures.
Some are self-refuting.
Some are self-refuting, right? There's the problem of evil, for example. And you look at our cultures and the fact that all these cultures have invented different gods, and nearly all of them we don't even pay attention to anymore. We don't worship Marduk anymore. or anyway, and so eventually you can, I think, begin to conclude that there's not much here, and tentatively make a statement that there is no God, but it always has to be kind of conditional in the sense that, hey, there may be one hiding under a rock somewhere on the other side of the universe that we just haven't discovered yet, and we just haven't met it yet.
Right.
So, I don't think you can be hardcore and absolutely certain, and maybe Matt would say you can't be absolutely certain of anything.
Definitely.
But tentatively you might say, hey, I don't see any reason to believe in this, and so the answer may be tentatively no.
Well, what I generally say is that I believe, my lack of belief in a God, or my view on the existence of a God, is aligned with my view on the existence of fairies or gremlins or any other mythological creation. And if somebody would like to demonstrate their God as more valid than one of those things, then they're welcome to do it. But what I find disingenuous is that many theists will think, they'll be almost offended that you'll compare their God to a fairy or a gremlin, and yet they won't sit there and say, well, I can't say it doesn't exist because, I'd have to be sure. How can I be sure? They don't sit there and tentatively believe in fairies and believe in gremlins because they can't disprove them. And they'll sit there and be comfortable with me saying, okay, yeah, but now you're comparing it to something silly that doesn't exist. And it's like, well, have you demonstrated it doesn't exist? You're okay saying the fairy doesn't exist and you haven't turned every rock in the universe. But if I say that your God doesn't exist, suddenly I have to demonstrate it to this degree that you don't ask me to demonstrate any of the things that you're willing to reject and not believe in without having demonstrated it, right? So it's kind of a special pleading that they use.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I completely get that. I agree for the most part. What I'm kind of trying to ask is, like, if you meet someone and he goes, I'm sure there is no God, or I believe there is no God, do you go like, great, welcome to the club, or do you go, well, how do you know that? Can you demonstrate that?
I'm okay asking somebody how, like, for example, I'm the type of person that says I believe that a God does not exist. I'm willing to say that. And I always qualify it and say, I am saying this in the same way I would say it about a fairy and for all the same reasons. And if there is a person walking around who takes issue with that goes around saying, no, I accept, belief in all these things, or I am not willing to say that fairies don't exist, I kind of consider that a little silly. And I'm not ready to hit the point where I'm willing to walk around saying that I'm too nervous to say that a fairy or a gremlin doesn't exist just because I haven't disproved it. When we invent these things, when they have nothing to validate them, like Don is saying, if someone presents me with a God, I will admit I'm wrong.
Yeah, but for the case of the atheist saying there is no God, that might be just a shorthand for, I don't see any evidence for it, So the reasons matter. I think that the answer is you don't take that claim on face value. If the person has good reasons for not believing or thinking that there is no God, then they get a pass. The reasons do matter.
I'm talking strictly about anti-theists. I obviously know that some people mean atheists, but they say they're anti-theists by mistake.
Well, I would say that term means that you're against religion, that you're against belief in religions, and I count myself as an anti-theist. I think religions are harmful, but I say that as a separate question of belief in God, atheism, strong atheism, weak atheism, or theism. I see that as those are different sort of questions.
Yeah, and again, I qualify it. Whenever I say it, I qualify it, and I tell people whatever it means when a person says they don't believe fairies exist, I'm saying it for the same reason. So, if they're accepting of that claim or they understand that claim and why it's made, why people make that, I'm treating the God claim no differently.
Yeah, and atheists. So there are some atheists that don't believe in gods for bad reasons. There's. I think.
Yeah, for sure.
I think at the end of the day, we want to have good reasons for what we believe in or what we're following, and it doesn't matter what the label is. It doesn't matter what the claim is. Go have some good reasons for it.
I'm not going to run around concerned about dragons, eating me, and I don't feel apologetic
Tracie.
about it. So. All right. Okay, Okay, we do have some other callers.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, I appreciate your call. Thank
guys.
you.
Love the show.
Okay,
All right,
bye.
thanks. See ya.
Now, you're saying I hit 3 and then drop, right?
Yeah.
Drop.
Okay, thank you.
Drop.
All right.
Okay.
Did I drop him? He's
I'm
still
still
on.
on the drop already.
Okay.
Okay.
3 is there. I'm dropping that
Now
call.
we got it,
Okay, he's not
To
dropped.
mash that button.
If you can say you're dropped, you're not. Okay, so now we have this one here, right?
Okay.
This is Chad in Rockford.
Hello?
Hey.
Hey, Tracie, you used the term anti-choice a little bit ago.
Yes.
You think that's accurate? Like,
I
they're
think
against choices?
I know that people argue about the labels. I think it's way more accurate than pro-life.
Well, is it okay if they call you anti-life? Like, are you against life?
No, I'm not
That's
against life, but I do know people that are pro-life and pro-choice. So I don't think I don't think pro-life really sums it up.
I mean, it's not like people who are pro-life, it's not like their position is seated in, like, we just don't want people to have choices. We're really against, like, their whole position is seated in, for the life. You know what I mean? Like, it's not that they're against choices, and I think...
But they don't want a woman to be able to have a choice. They want it to be legislated, right?
Yeah, I suppose.
Yeah, I
but-
suppose too.
And they don't
That's not the
care
main-
terribly
that's not
much
the main
if the
reason.
child's wanted.
I'm not saying it's their main reason, but it is what they're actually against: the ability for the woman to choose. They are not. Like I say, I know people that are pro-life, and that does not mean that they're anti-choice.
And what about the same... yeah, all right, I guess I know what you mean. But what about the same argument, like, towards you, calling you, like, anti-life? Saying, like, yeah, you're not really against
But
life.
I'm not,
You're, like,
because I am okay with a woman who chooses life. I'm fine with that. I'm not down on her telling her that she
She's
needs
not
to have
forcing
an
people
abortion.
to have abortions.
Yeah, and actually, I don't really care. I was just asking.
Yeah,
about
that's
that.
not really your call, but it's okay that you're allowed to ask questions. So, all right. So what are we talking about today?
With Sam Harris. I mean, you guys follow him? You generally agree?
I'm not huge on him. I've read one of his books. And what about you, Don?
Oh, are you talking about his claim that atheism is kind of a nonsense word and we shouldn't use it?
Sort of. Yeah.
I haven't followed that too much. I'd be okay with there not ever needing to be atheism anymore. It's like, I think his claim is that we don't have A, the leprechauns, and A, gremlins, and
But we do have bald, and we do have blind,
there you go. Okay.
right? I
Yeah.
mean, we do have descriptors that mean without.
I guess, but I mean, he used the example of like racism. Like, most of us don't identify as non-racist, We just,
Yeah.
and it's kind of the same thing. Like, what will it look like when racism is conquered? It's not a world where everybody is identifying.
But we did
as
have
non-racist
abolitionists
or-
during slavery, correct?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, and I guess the argument against Sam would be like, well, that may happen sometime in the future, not right now, but
Right.
And I
maybe.
think-
but what
in
about
50
bald?
years.
What about bald? Like, do we need to have a term for people
Well,
that don't have hair?
You can make a valid claim. I'm patting Tracie. You can make a valid claim that atheism isn't asserting a positive claim about how we should live our lives and do these sorts of things. And there is secular humanism, and a lot of atheists are secular humanists. I identify the word atheist because I'm sort of anti-religion, and I see a lot of harm and problems there, and that's kind of my shtick. So I like the atheism word because it says a lot about kind of what I care about. I'm also a humanist, and I do think that is a good way to secular humanism is got a lot of wonderful goodness in there that a lot of folks that's their first label, and so it takes all emphasis and all different ways of
Right. I
Why
guess.
are you looking at me? Am I supposed to finish
I didn't
that
want to
thought?
shut you down.
No, I don't know. I think I didn't get the mind link.
So did we get your question answered?
No. So actually, I think there was one more thing, but I'm drawing a blank right now. But
All right. Well, maybe this is a good time to
It's the
stop.
mind link. The mind
We've
link
got
is-
just a few minutes
anyway.
left.
Okay.
thanks anyway.
Thank you.
Gosh, thank you, Chad. Okay, so I hit
I think you
that.
should try hitting drop.
drop. And it didn't drop again.
Hit
See?
the drop harder.
There it went.
There it
okay.
went.
Okay, so now we're looking at
Fun with buttons.
PJ in Seattle.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey. Hello.
Hello?
You're on the air.
Are
What's
you
up?
PJ in Seattle?
Yeah. Yes, I am.
Okay.
Yeah. So I actually called once on your show before a couple of years ago when I was in Seattle, right? Sorry, when I was in Chicago,
Okay.
right? I moved to Seattle, and I'm actually not. I wasn't born here. I'm from India, actually, right?
You don't say.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, so I came here for graduate school first in Chicago, and immediately, I was hounded by Jehovah's Witnesses and whatnot.
Welcome to America.
Right?
We empathize, yeah.
Yeah, so I called up on your show asking why, right? But then I moved to Seattle for my job. And I thought, Seattle being a very liberal city and stuff, it would be free from all this, but it's not. It's even worse.
Oh no.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So the thing is, digging deeper into this, I came across this larger phenomenon of this sort of culture war in the United States, which I've never seen anywhere else in the world. Where,
It's pretty crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why. And I have been confused ever since. So if you have people who deny evolution, that is something that is just crazy. Right? We have mountains and mountains of evidence as to, why and how we evolved.
Oh yeah.
And we have, in Seattle, there is this, group of nuts. They call themselves the Discovery Institute.
Discovery Institute.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I caught
Yeah, we
that.
know
All right.
about them, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is, this is. I'm flummoxed as to why this is in the U.S. Is it? Why is this happening?
Because
Right.
years ago, when the country was, just having Europeans come here to take over everything. Oh, look! Wait, can you hang on and we'll do an after show? Can you go on hold?
Okay.
Just hang on. We're gonna put you on
Okay.
hold. Don't hang up.
Okay.
Thank you to the casting crew. Thank you, Don. Thank you, everyone.
we're going to
Thank you,
dinner.
audience, and El Arroyo. We're heading that way. So just FYI.
You got
Appreciate
that
it.
address? Okay.